So the PlayStation 5 Pro has just come out, and when it was announced, it sent a bit of a shock to the gaming universe. Why? Because there was no disc tray with either version of the PS5 Pro. Now, the regular PlayStation 5 had two versions, a digital version, which had no option to put in the disc, and the other version, which did have that option. Xbox did the same with the Xbox Series. The S version was download only, and the X allowed discs to be inserted. The PS5 Pro is the latest version of every home console, and it has no disc slot option. So immediately a debate took off online, with many people upset about the Pro's incompatibility with the PS5 game discs. And there was another set of people saying, it's the future, everything will be download only. So on one hand, people found it upsetting that they can't buy games physically for the console, yet others seem to think that that type of school of thought is outdated. The future is download only, so they say. But the question is, are they right? Are physical video games now becoming obsolete as technology advances? Well, in today's video, I will attempt to answer that question. Let's cover the past, current, and future as far as physical games are concerned, and let's investigate what that means for the future. Quick side note, as always, a huge thank you to everyone for your support. If it's your first time watching one of my videos today, please consider subscribing. This is my 6-month anniversary on YouTube, and every subscriber means the world to me. Anyway, back to the video. Console gaming really took off in the 80s when we saw the release of the Sega SG-1000 and the Nintendo Entertainment System, which were the first real home consoles that had game cartridges. When Nintendo was readying the NES for the US market, they were entering a world where the idea of home video games was poison. The Atari 2600 had dominated and defined the US market for home video game consoles, and had flamed out spectacularly only shortly before in 1983. This was largely due to a flood of low-quality games produced by third-party creators. Nintendo's design choices for both the NES console itself, as well as the cartridges, came out of wanting to create new associations for buyers, so that the dark cloud over the Atari catastrophe didn't carry over to their new product before it even got going. So Nintendo actually made their cartridges not only bigger for technical reasons, but also for marketing purposes. Although we identify small and sleek as good value nowadays, back in the 80s, Nintendo wanted the games to look as futuristic and larger, indicating a better value for money opposed to their rivals Atari. Either way, cartridges were the only option to buy for home consoles. This continued with the Super NES in 1990, which became the best-selling console of the 16-bit era. But then, in 1994, the Sony PlayStation arrived, and it went on to sell 100 million units. Its use of compact discs heralded the game industry's transition from cartridges. Although the Nintendo 64 persisted with the cartridges, the success of the PlayStation marked a turning point in gaming. The next generation of consoles, such as the PS2, Nintendo GameCube, and the newly created Microsoft Xbox, all would continue to make their games based on discs, thus ending the cartridges on home consoles. Technology at this point had progressed significantly, but no matter which of the three consoles you chose, to buy a new game, you had to go to a shop and pick up the physical copy. Games would be packaged in a case which had artwork across the front, information on the back, and then on the inside it would have the disc and sometimes bonus content. So for example, GTA San Andreas came with an entire booklet included. Some games provided guidebooks inside. In fact, it became pretty commonplace to at least have a wall hanging poster inside the game package for free. But the bottom line is, if you collected video games, your shelves would be full with physical copies of each game. Things started to change in the next generation of home consoles with the PS3 and Xbox 360. The internet became more readily available at this time, and online gaming had become more commonplace than ever. Physical games were still very common, but with the introduction to the Xbox Marketplace and the PlayStation 3 store, gamers now had the option to download video games straight over the internet. They no longer needed to go to the store, they could just download them there immediately. This was especially successful with the introduction of microtransactions. Before, when you bought a game, that was it. You got the game and you could play it. Nothing else. You couldn't add to it. But once you were able to get everything online, the industry changed. Monthly subscriptions like the Xbox Live became commonplace, and games like Skyrim allowed you to download new DLC immediately to add to your current game. Microtransactions began arriving, and the famous horse armor microtransaction from Oblivion showcased its success. I've done a video on that here, but just to summarize, the horse armor microtransaction was used to test the market, to see if people would pay for a small cosmetic feature. Spoiler alert, they did. But gaming was beginning to go virtual. People still bought the discs, but had warmed to the idea of the convenience of online downloadable games. The PS4 and Xbox One era saw that trend continue, but with more digital games purchased than the previous generations, and that brings us to today. With the introduction of the membership passes, such as Xbox Gamepass and PlayStation Plus, gamers were now offered the chance to play hundreds of games for a monthly fee. They no longer needed to buy a lot of games, and instead, for one fee every month, they could have access to a huge library of games that they could download at will. At first, this was mainly older titles, with new titles being required to be purchased, but in recent times it's almost become a competition to see which membership can offer the most. Xbox Games Pass now adds new releases to its library immediately for Game Pass holders. PlayStation tries to do the same, and we've now seen Microsoft go out and buy Bethesda and Activision Blizzard in an attempt to take over the market. If you want to play Starfield, Bethesda's most recent release, you have to own an Xbox. It's not available for the PlayStation 5. So the market has now changed completely. We went from going out and buying individual games to then downloading the games to now having a monthly subscription, which now gives us access to newer and older games. The Xbox Series released in 2020 and made two versions of the console, a digital online version and a disc version. The disc version was more expensive, but it allowed you to still use physical games. The PlayStation 5 did the same with two consoles, and again, same setup, same price structure. According to the statistics from 2022, the Xbox Series S, the digital-only version, represented 74.8% of the total Xbox Series sold, meaning that only 25% of Xbox owners opted for the disc version. Now, keep in mind the S only cost $250 and the X was $500, as was the PS5, so these stats could be totally different now, as people have saved up for them, but at the end of the day, it shows how comfortable we are with the online-only setup. And then just last month, the PS5 Pro was announced as digital only. No discs, no second console option. This sparked a debate across the internet, with some crying out and demanding a disc version of the Pro. The other side said that digital is the future and it's time that they came to terms with it. I think the fact is that both are pretty right. It's a shame to see that physical games are starting to disappear in favour of download only, but from the game developer's standpoint, it totally makes sense. Let me explain why. The pros are the convenience of downloading games easily and the ability to receive constant updates for the game that you purchased. Now, this also allows game developers and companies to cut costs of the design, the printing, development and shipping of the physical games. So, as they can save money on these type of things, we get a cheaper game, as the price comes down to reflect that. And oh, wait, never mind, I guess the price is staying the same no matter what. Recently, I bought a game called The Casting of Frank Stone. I wanted it for the PS5 and I have the disc version, but it was download only. The new Life is Strange is also download only. Essentially, the game developers have already started to transition to download only, and Steam has been like this for years for PC gamers. This is something that is going to happen whether we like it or not, but there are a few negative points. First of all is the value of the games. A lot of people bought video games in the past, and they can now sell them for huge profits. Video games used to be able to be purchased for a fee, and you could see it as a bit of an investment. You could pick it up for a lower price, and now you could sell it for a higher price. If everything goes digital, that will no longer be the case. First of all, it's essentially impossible to sell a digital game, but even then, its market value will never go up. If you buy an old game for say like $50 and then 20 years later there's only 5 of them left in the world, this game's value will shoot up for thousands. You're able to sell the game at the profit as the supply of the games is much lower than the demand for the game. As there is a limited supply of them, you will see the value of your game go up. Now, in the digital world, the online games will always be available for a price, so you can never compete with it. They will never run out of digital copies, so you can never charge more than the online store is selling them for. The investment side ceases to exist in an online version only world. This also goes on to cover price. See, if you want to play a game now, you can either buy it from the store at full price or go onto eBay or Amazon and pick it up for cheaper. For example, let's look at Super Smash Bros. For the Switch. It came out in 2019, but if we go to the Nintendo shop online, we see it's for sale digitally for $59.99. That's the exact price it was in 2019, so it hasn't changed at all. So let's nip over to eBay and take a quick look. Wow, I can pick it up for just $15. So using this method, I've just saved $45. If every game is digital, there is no alternative purchase option. This means the video game stores never have to drop their price. Either buy it from them at the full price or go and buy it from them at full price. Sometimes online stores will drop their prices to compete with the prices of websites like eBay, but if that is no longer an option, the price will always stay the same. It also means if I buy a physical game for $60, I could sell it for say $40 and recuperate some of my money back. Overall, that experience cost me $20. If it's digital only, that option goes away. I'm still in on the $60, and if I don't like it, well, game over. Another thing is that you never really own the game. See, I own my physical copy of Red Dead Redemption 2. The internet could shut down tomorrow and it's still mine. I could see my account hacked and play it on another console. It's mine forever. I can see it, touch it, and play it. Digital? Not so much. I'll give you an example. I had a friend who owned a Telltale game called Game of Thrones. They really liked it, but they bought it digitally. Bought it, so it's theirs by right. Anyway, a few years later, they wanted to play it again, and they tried to re-download it to their console. It wasn't there. They looked into it, and Telltale Games lost the rights to the IP of the Game of Thrones. So what could they do? Nothing. PlayStation lost it, and so did they. If they bought the physical copy, no matter what happened with Telltale Games, she would always have had her copy and could play. When it's digital, we're at the mercy of the gaming company. The other two negatives are firstly that stores like Gamestop or Game will go under, just like Blockbuster. I really enjoy the act of going into a game shop and looking at games, but if the next generation is digital only, those shops will no longer be able to survive. Now, whether that's considered a pro or a con, I'll leave for you to decide, but the final negative thing to discuss is that some people just like to have the game. They just generally enjoy collecting them, putting them on shelves, getting the posters that come with them. I know I do, and if the world goes digital only, those days will cease to exist. Now, no matter what the pros and cons may be, I think it's inevitable that the future will be digital only. Right now, video game companies can charge full price, cut costs on design, production and shipping, and they can still charge the full price. They can get access to the consumer right in the game and push microtransactions. Basically, they'll make more money. If they cut out the option of physical copies, us, the consumers, cannot alter the price, which means they never have to drop the price. They can keep it at its maximum cost forever. It would also allow companies like Microsoft and Sony to finally increase the price of games overall, as there's no competition, and their monthly pass price as well. We've already seen Xbox increase their membership recently. It makes complete sense for the companies for them to do this, but look, I like convenience. I've bought games online to save a trip. I have Gamepass. I see value in both worlds, but no matter what, the consumers generally will opt for convenience. If the world went digital tomorrow and physical games ceased to exist, we would all have to get on with it. If Microsoft kept its price the same for its Game Pass and kept delivering top quality games, we wouldn't really get upset too much. Consumers also get a say. in their wallets. If the Game Pass doubled the price, or their games shot up to $100 each instead of $60, as long as the consumers don't buy the product, the companies will have to adjust their prices. So no matter what the future looks like, it's still a future where the consumers will get the final vote, even if we no longer can buy the physical games. There is a lot of negatives associated with digital only, but there are still a lot of positives as well. No matter what, I honestly believe it's an inevitable future that games will end up being digital only. Anyway, that's it for this one. What do you guys think? Do you agree with my assessment, or do you think differently? Do you prefer physical copies, or are you not really bothered if it's digital only? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I'm Av Gaming, where we do video game analysis, identifying what makes great games great and what could make good games great as well. Thanks for watching. Av out.